Moving from Sean Hannity's response to Trump's indictment to Jesse Waters, another Fox News host, response to Trump's most recent indictment. Yet again, absolutely unhinged. And I'll show you Jesse Waters referencing kind of a threat, I guess. Now Trump's going to go after all of you when he becomes president. Sorry, just smacked my mic there. And it's all going to come back around. And take a look at this.
After these political war crimes have been perpetrated on him, Donald Trump is in the best position he's been in so far to win re-election. Can you believe that? At which point he'll have to pardon himself immediately. And don't you think for a second he's not going to unleash hell on all of his political enemies. This is only the beginning of politicians putting other politicians and their families in prison. Sad we had to go down this road, but this is where we are, and now we have to finish it.
We saw this a lot with the first Jack Smith related indictment, and we're going to see it a lot with this one. There's no discussion of the evidence being brought forward or what really Trump specifically being accused of. It's just Biden's locking up Trump. They try to oversimplify it to that because, of course, Biden, there's zero evidence at this point in time that he's at all involved or directed anyone to investigate Donald Trump. And they've been trying to put, because of the concern that that would be an appearance, as many walls of separation in between Biden, Merrick Garland, and then Jack Smith. And Jack Smith has been running a pretty independent investigation, even from the Department of Justice broadly, with Merrick Garland leading it. And so this narrative only works if you don't specifically address the evidence. Because if you do, then you would have to say, Trump did all those things, and indeed those seem to be against the law, but just don't hold him accountable because he's a presidential candidate and a former president. And no one wants to hear themselves say that, and so instead it has to be, this is a political persecution vaguely, and he didn't do anything wrong vaguely, because if you actually walk through the specifics of the indictment, that all falls apart. And that's why even at Trump rallies, as I've told y'all before, when I've gone and asked people about Trump's legal troubles, none of them have read the specifics of them. None of them have walked through the unsealed first indictment, and I bet it'll be the same thing with this one. Because if they do, maybe a little part of them knows it'll be harder to believe the things they believe about Trump being this big victim. But now the lies about Trump being a victim will justify, if God forbid he became president again, him actually victimizing other people and actually trying to go after unjustifiably his political enemies, as Jesse Waters is saying there. Another moment from this Jesse Waters show, very wild. He sort of points to and admits the reason the GOP is such a bad governing party.
First point, they said the defendant impaired the federal government from functioning. Isn't that literally the Republican Party platform to reduce the ability of the federal government from functioning? And then they...
I mean, in a sense, it is, right? Because if they're always saying the government can't do anything good and we need to fund all these different programs and all the different talking points we hear, the government's so broken, then as I've said in the past, it's kind of politically advantageous for them, or it plays into their own narrative, their own campaigns, to allow the government to stay broken in certain areas or break it further. And so then when you underfund programs, they can't work as effectively. You can point to them not working as effectively and say, see, this is why we need to privatize everything, privatize education, or all the different areas in which they don't think proper funding. So it's a circular effect, and then we get a further broken government that further helps their narrative that the government's super broken and we shouldn't have any of these beneficial programs. And so Jesse Waters is correctly but strangely identifying that for the party that he runs interference for. Then you have Rand Paul appearing on Jesse Waters' show saying this.
And Garland's prosecutors are bloodthirsty for Donald Trump. He was just indicted today on January 6th. How do you stomach that?
You know, I don't know how you can indict someone for claiming there was fraud in the election. Many on the left say, oh, well, there was no fraud because the court said so. Well, most...
Hey, maybe you should explain why it's bad that Trump's being indicted for what he's actually being indicted for, not your made up stories.
How do you stomach that?
Like this.
You know, I don't know how you can indict someone for claiming there was fraud in the election.
That's not what he's being indicted for. So why are you bringing that up? You're arguing against an alternate reality. That's not helpful to this discussion, Rand Paul. If you have actual concerns about this being political persecution, then bring forward actual facts. He's being charged for a conspiracy to do a number of different things, including obstructing official proceedings, trying to prevent the lawful process from moving forward, the peaceful transition of power from happening, and along the way trying to get state officials to do things that would be unconstitutional to prevent the correct electoral count from happening, and instead having this bogus electoral count that bizarrely puts Trump into power and absolutely overthrowing a free and fair election. And the lies that Trump was telling publicly were the same ones he was using to justify all those different things. That's where the lies come into play. He's not being charged for lying or for claiming there was widespread voter fraud. So why spread that nonsense? Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.